Okay, now we're going to cover, in this video, we're going to cover how to use the prices and trend line. Now, when you go to Magenta Trader software and you load any stock, for example, let's say we load Google. We always load it right here where it says symbol after you've logged into the software, and you press enter, and it's going to load the symbol. Now, we have several analysis we can do on this software. Now, if I look at prices and trend line, okay, we can see two lines. We see a green line, okay, we see a yellow line, we see a magenta color line, and we see a red line. Now, what do these lines mean? This bottom line is called the 10% line, and this top line is called the 90% line. Now, if you put you can see how the purple line, and you see it right here, okay, is the median, which is the middle price, and then we have the yellow line, which is the mean, or the average price. Now, what happens is, this being the 10% line and this being the 90% line, this would be the extreme low in the market, and this is the extreme high in the market. Now, based on a mathematical formula, only 10% of the time the market's going to get above this green line, and only 10% of the time is going to get below this green line. Now, how can we use this? We can say that whenever we're below this line, we have a 90% probability that we will get and we go to the upside. It's a real extreme low, so the market has to head up. Just like when we're on this top, we're in extreme high, and we have a high probability of the market going down. Now, this works real well, especially when you use it in conjunction with seasonality. So if you see a stock that's below this line and we have a good seasonal trend, you know you have a high probability trade of going to the upside. Another good way of using this 10% line and this 80% line is using seasonality. Seasonality and using candlestick formations, which we're going to cover in a future video. Okay, another indication of this line is the slope. The slope means the inclination. You can see how these lines are sloping upwards. That's telling us that this stock is in an upward trend. Okay, so for example, seeing Google that it's below this 10% line. Okay, you can see how I got below the 10% line. It's sloping upwards, and if we change to prices and seasonality, we're seeing, let me just put it here, 6 months. You can see how we have seasonally this stock go up in December. Now, one way we can find stocks that are below this 10% line, our software has a built-in screener. If you go right here to Window and you go to Screener, let me remove here and give you an example on how you can use this. So we'll remove all the filters, and we could add, and there's a specific filter that says price location, or location right here of price, and we go OK. Now you can see how it says, do we want to find stocks that are below the 10% line or that are above the 90% line? So if I want to find stocks that are below the 10% line, right here, this would be the location of price that I want to use. Below the 10% line would be the red line, and above the 90% line would be the green line. So it depends if I want to look for buys or look for calls, or if I want to look for puts. So if I'm using this one below the 90% line, it's a good one to find calls because we're at extreme low. And if we use the 90% line, then it's a good area to find puts. Okay, so let's see here. Let's find that are below the 90%, and we could add other filters. For example, let me see just the stocks that are in the US market. Let me see the stocks that have options available if I want to play calls. And I could add, let me see stocks that have good seasonality during this area, also positive, and let's say that they go up at least 10%. So if I do a filter, okay, and I do a search, you can see how I found 59 stocks that tend to go up. So for example, let's look at this one, ARO. Okay, so I got it right here from the filter. Just randomly select one. Okay, and I go ARO. Okay, now if I place this on a 1-year channel, okay, and I see the recent trend. Now that's something very important. What's the recent trend? You can see how this market was trending up, then it got down, then it went sideways. So I could select this area, okay, and I can see the channel. So, and this is, even though it's slightly right here sloping down, you can see how it got to the extreme low, to the extreme high, to the extreme low, and now we're right in the middle of this pattern. Now we do have a good seasonality, and you can see how it found us a stock that has a real nice seasonality coming upwards. Okay, and if I get a real tight range here, I can see how it's below the red with a good seasonality heading to the upside. So it's a very good entry point to get in here. Now, what else can I add on my screener? If I go to the screener, okay, we could even screen. Let me remove right here seasonality area. Okay, we can screen for what's called the slope or the inclination of the line. So for example, you can see how it comes default to find a positive slope, which it's getting the angle. So it means we want to see those lines sloping upwards. We would put 5 to 90. If we want to see these sloping downwards, then all we would have to do is move this little bar to -90, and then this bar to -5, and we would find stocks who are sloping downwards. Now we would also probably want to change the price location to find them when they're above the channel, because this would be the 10% channel and this would be the 90% channel. So if we find a stock that is sloping down and it's above the 90%, that could be a good put option. So let's change this to 90. In the US market that have options available with a downward sloping stock to find some puts. And let's just take a look at a couple. Let's look at CRS. Okay, and if I see the recent trend, you can see how this recent trend is downward. So I like selecting this recent area. Okay, and you can see how it's been channeling downward. The slope of the lines is downward, and we're above this 10% line. This 90% line, this is the 10% line. Okay, so we're above. We're in an extreme high, and you can see how we get, if you use it in conjunction with candlestick formations, we have a very bearish candlestick formation. When we see a long wick with a small body and no wick to the downside, this is called a shooting star, which is a very bearish signal, and we'll cover that in future lessons. Let's look at the seasonal. We're kind of going against the seasonality, so that wouldn't be a good criteria. It's just a small seasonal move to the downside. Let's go back to the screener here, and we'll go screen. Let's see if we could find other candidates, but at least it makes your job easier. You go through these 51 stocks here. If you're looking for put, let's put here BVN. Let's see what it comes up with, and I'll probably load a couple more fast. Okay, BVN, and let's see what we come up with. So for example, let's look at fast. If I look at fast, I'll signal this recent trend, and you can see how we've been, we're in a downward trending stock, and it's moving. You can see how it's gone from the bottom of the channel to the top of the channel. Gave us a doji, and this one we do have good seasonality going down. So this is a good, telling us that the probabilities are for the next couple of days for this stock to go to the downside. Let's look at BVN. You could also see BVN is on the extreme high, but we don't have any candle formations signaling, but we are sloping downwards, and it's an extreme high here. So this channel can really help you find extremes in the market. For example, let's look at a popular stock, which is Apple, and let's look at how this trend channel can help you. You can see how we were below the channel right here, or real close to the 10% line, and then here we were above the 90% line, the green line and the red line. Okay, if you would have bought here and sold here, you had a good extreme. Now what's it telling us? That Apple is at an extreme low, okay, where it has more probability of heading to the upside at this price than it only has 10% probability of this heading further down, and it has 90% probability of heading up. In conjunction, if you see the seasonality, this stock tends to go up till April. Now, another analysis on this is you can see, if I select this area, how you had a strong candle formation there. If you would have bought at the hammer formation, you caught a nice run up to the upside. Okay, let's look at a couple more stocks and see how this helps us. Okay, for example, this is the recent trend right here, and you can see how it's sloping upwards, and you can see how when it was below the 10% line, and then it got above the 90% line. Okay, when it was below here or near this, good area to buy. Right here, good area to sell. Went down right here, it stayed at a good area to buy, and now it's heading to the upside. So you can see how it's heading up to the upside, and using seasonality, you go to prices and seasonality, and you zoom out here, you can see how we're in a very good, strong seasonal time of the year. Okay, so this is a very powerful tool on using the Magenta Channel. This is what we call the Magenta Channel, which is the 90% line and 10% line, which help you find extremes in the market. Okay, if you have any further questions, feel free to contact our office or visit our website, magentatrader.com.